at our school photos, my primary one photo, all the boys are sitting in Wellingtons, thick socks, and tremendous mixture of all sorts of...
Then it was wartime.
Yeah, so this is, and this... And of course, when did Sharp's Institution and Perth Academy join? Because Sharp's Institution wore grey and Perth Academy wore navy.
That's right. Obvious.
Because even my late husband's first year photo, some of the boys were still wearing hand-me-down Sharp's uniform.
Grey things.
Grey.
Yeah.
But as you go through my primary photos, gradually, it's much the same class, hardly any change in the personnel.
Mm-hmm.
By primary 7, there we all are, beautifully turned out and clean and hairbrushed and... but, mums would be out working because dads were away serving king and country, and we really looked a bunch of ragamuffins. I mean, I kind of stood out like a sore thumb, because I think in that one I've got a wee tartan skirt and a Fair Isle pullover.
Yeah.
And we have a mutual acquaintance whose aunt made the kilts for the Black Watch, and the ends, there were twins in that family, and the ends were passed to another aunt in the family, and these twins always had these, and of course they were hairy because it was thick tartan. And Elspeth still talks about sitting in school because Mummy then knitted the Fair Isle jumper, which was probably bits ripped down, and re-knitted. And they both had these Fair Isle, and she said she used to sit and scratch the whole day.
It'd be the days before comfort softener, I suppose.
Yes,
absolutely.
And then certainly in that case, Mum had to go back to work because what she did, all the men had gone away from Moncrief's Glassworks, and she was needed because she knew what. And the Moncrief's Glassworks in the war were they were big and they were very busy. She was asked back, and that's why Elspeth has a collection. At the end of the week on a Friday, there was a trestle table put out at the back of Moncrief's. And of course, Moncrief's made things like test tubes and stuff for scientific works, but they also made screens for aeroplanes.
Right.
So they were a big, where St Catherine's,
Yeah.
they were a big area. And this table was put out with the rejects, things where there are a mistake in them, a bubble or a gold thread gone wrong or something like that. And because we now wonder whether, Elspeth always wonders whether one day they'll explode because there's a mistake in them.
I see.
Or whether they're more valuable because they really were rejects.
My father's youngest sister had to go and, did he tell her, entertain Willie Soutar every Saturday morning, and she was always down to play hockey, but her mother wouldn't allow her to go. She was sent round to entertain him.
Oh, what did she do?
Well, she obviously sat and
Just
talked and laughed and giggled and all
told
the rest of it.
Told them what was going on in the...
The doings of school. Yeah.
Because she was one of the prettiest of the girls. My father had 6 sisters.
You mean these two brothers had to live in digs in Perth because they couldn't travel, and of course Perth Academy was the only senior secondary in the area at that time. So that a lot of them were travelling quite a good distance, and if you were of religious persuasion, Roman Catholic, you had to go down to Dundee because if you went to Perth Academy, there was quite a
Yeah, but they had to come back from Dundee in fourth year. Remember the Gavigans?
Oh, I thought that was Paddy Gavigan's choice.
No.
Was it
the
not?
The education ended at Lawside.
Did Lawside not go on? I
No,
thought that was
no.
why they went to Dundee, because
No.
Lawside went up to...
No, it didn't.
It didn't.
It finished.
I just remember, you know, the priest being cross about them going to Perth Academy.
Well, maybe some sent them
Because
from the beginning.
Betty got my sister's gym dress.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
Golly.
You know, everything was passed down.
Reused. Evelyn, you said you're related on your father's side.
Yes. My grandmother, my father's mother, was a Soutar. That's why her youngest daughter was sent to entertain him every Saturday morning. But I don't ever remember going to be taken to see him or anything like that.
Because, as I say, people didn't venture very far. And of course there was lots of work in Perth between pullers, dewars, Moncriefs, the mills, Coates.
That's right.
All the mills along Dunkeld Road. There was a tremendous amount of work
was there too.
work for people.
Lots of industry.
Oh, tremendous amount. I mean, you heard all the hooters going whenever lunchtime was, and when lunch was finished, you know, time to go back in again. They all hooted.
Really? Really?
To get the workers back in.
And do you remember that when you were in school? Because...
Well, I remember that as a small child.
Well, of course, we backed on to Dunkeld Road, and there was nothing behind us on Dunkeld Road. There was Dunkeld Road, and there was Coates, and what was the other one?
Shields was there.
Shields. And they were making material, you know.
And there was a lot of them did sacking and what.
I was going to say a lot of Hessian and khaki materials, and of course we had a huge barracks behind St Ninian's. A vast number of soldiers.
Oh, tremendous.
Far too many to live in the barracks because my mother's greatest friend, sort of 5 houses down, she had been widowed when she had a 6-week-old and a 2-year-old, Ella Cameron, Lord Cameron of Bulhouse's mother.
Yes.
And
I thought they lived in High Street.
no, they had to go, I think they lived over the water somewhere.
Well, they maybe lived in the High Street originally.
Her husband came home for his lunch, and she said, I'll go. She put his soup down, and she said, I'll go and bring the baby in. And when she came back, he had collapsed into the soup and he had died. And there she was left, a young widow. She may have been in the High Street. I thought they were over the water at that time. But they may have been in the High Street. And she had to move back to live with her parents because she, probably the house was attached to his, he was welfare of the time, prison or what we would now call social work. He worked in that, and they would, by normal standards, have had quite a good future. And she had to go back and live with her parents, and of course ended up looking after the house and her 2 children. Somehow Ishbel managed to get to Glasgow Doe School and do an IMA. She went into services, and Neil went off as soon as he could to the RAF, and of course became the chief of the defence staff eventually.
He did really, really well.
He did really well, which is why he became Lord Cameron of Bulhousey. But she always had 1, if not 2 rooms let out to never anything less than a captain. Always a captain or a major, you know, and they were boarded out.
Safer.
Sorry?
She would be safer, maybe.
They were boarded out in the Balhousie because, of course, Balhousie Castle too was full of Black Watch, and the sort of senior ranks would be boarded out Barossa Place, Balhousie Street, round that area in accommodation. So,
what a fascinating story.
But very sad, because she was never, even once Neil was doing quite well, you know, she never
changed.
She never changed, and she was never in a position to have a lot of comforts. She had worked hard all her days. Ishmael eventually married and went to live in South Africa. Last time I saw her was she came home when Neil got the freedom of Perth, because my husband and I went to that.
Yes.
He got the freedom of Perth in the City Hall, which was an interesting, because not many people get, Perth's never been very generous about.
Well, Churchill came.
He was the Prime Minister.
I can't remember if he was Prime Minister in these
at
days,
the time.
was he?
I remember we had to go out and line the streets.
Yeah. A great big fat.
Yes,
They really did.
Tommy loves open
Rolls Royce.
Rolls Royce, yeah.
So that everyone would be able to see.
Yes.
It wouldn't be allowed now that a local shopkeeper would be lending his
I don't know.
car, would it?
If they didn't have anything else.
No.
Quite glad.
But I remember us being taken down to line the high street.
I can remember Mother in all her glory. She got new suit, new hat, new everything.
Yes, but by that time your father...
she was at the actual
because your father would be
they were invited.
Evelyn's father was
High Constable.
A High Constable.
No, but I don't think he was the High Constable. I don't think Father ever marched. I think that went against the grain with him.
But the High Constable...
What's a High Constable?
They guard the Queen when the Queen comes to Perth.
They're equivalent to the Edinburgh Company of Archers. That kind of...
Right. But Edinburgh have the High Constables as well. They have their High Constables. But, and... They get batons with their name and everything on.
They go
batons, and they go out with their
tailcoats and their top hats.
Silk top hats.
And they still go out once a year.
On Remembrance Sunday.
It's Remembrance Sunday. They always march through the town to St John's Kirk. And any other ceremonial occasion.
So your father would have been there
perhaps as a High Constable, or as
he was a businessman, so he would be invited with that shout. I don't think he was one of the longest serving High Constables, but he never really went to the big do once a year in the Station Hotel. I think I don't know if he went to many of the meetings or anything. I think it was because his father was in everything. He was just sort of drifted into everything.
Yes.
I never really thought very much about it.
It's like the Dean of Guild.
Yeah.
You have to be related.
I see.
You're introduced by your uncle or your grandfather or
whatever
to be a guildryman in Perth.